This week, two Category 5 storms spun up in the Pacific back-to-back, while the Atlantic sat completely dead, with wind shear at levels never recorded before in over 45 years. That's not a coincidence. That's one massive weather event, flipping two oceans in opposite directions at the same time. And if you think a quiet hurricane season means you're off the hook, wait until you hear how a storm that wasn't even a hurricane dumped 29 inches of rain on Louisiana this June. So let's back up for a second, because you need to understand what's actually happening out there before any of this makes sense. Every few years, the Pacific Ocean does something strange. Normally, trade winds blow warm water toward Asia, and cold water rises up along the coast of South America. That's just the ocean's regular rhythm. But every 3 or 4 years, those winds weaken, and all that warm water sloshes back the other way, piling up along the Americas like a lid on a pot. That's El Niño. Fishermen off the coast of Peru noticed it centuries ago. Every so often their nets came up empty, and the water turned warm right around Christmas. They named it after the Christ child. They had no idea they'd stumbled onto one of the most powerful weather makers on the planet. Now here's why this year is different. NOAA measures this event on what's basically a heart monitor, a patch of ocean out in the central Pacific. Normal El Niño years, that patch runs about 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than average. A Super El Niño crosses 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit above average. This year already blew past that line, and satellite data is now showing peak anomalies of roughly 9 degrees Fahrenheit above normal in some spots. Most of the big weather models agree this is on pace to be the strongest El Niño ever measured. That's not a guess. That's what's showing up on the charts right now. And here's something that puts this whole event in perspective. Events this strong are flat out rare. Scientists count only 5 confirmed Super El Niños since 1950, back in 1972, 1982, 1997, and 2015, and now this one. Historians suspect 2 more happened even further back in 1888 and 1877, long before anybody had the tools to actually measure them. So, what you're watching develop right now is something most people alive today have only seen a handful of times in their entire lives. Part of why it built so fast comes down to something called a Kelvin wave. Basically, when those trade winds weaken, a massive pulse of warm water that's been sitting below the surface starts sliding east underneath the ocean, then rises up and breaks the surface as what we now call El Niño. That subsurface pulse this year was unusually large, which is a big reason this event went from normal to super faster than nearly anything on record. Now here's where it gets interesting for anybody who lives anywhere near the Gulf or the East Coast. You'd think a monster El Niño means monster hurricanes. It's actually the opposite, at least for the Atlantic. A strong El Niño cranks up something called wind shear over the Caribbean. Think of wind shear like a bully at high altitude, ripping the top off a storm before it ever gets the chance to organize. Hurricanes need calm air to grow. Wind shear is the exact opposite of calm. And right now, that wind shear over the Caribbean is running at the highest levels ever recorded since 1979. NOAA's Climate Prediction Center said it flat out in their outlook this week. Tropical storm formation over the Caribbean and Central Atlantic is unlikely for the foreseeable future. Normally, August is when the Atlantic season really wakes up. The hostile wind shear backs off. The dry air clears out. There's plenty of warm ocean water sitting there like fuel in a tank, and storm seedlings march off the coast of Western Africa every few days, looking for a chance to grow. That's the usual playbook. But with this El Niño pumping extra shear and dry air into the mix, forecasters expect that normal August ramp up to be both delayed and a lot weaker than usual this year. So, if you've got a beach house in Florida, a boat in the Gulf, or family down in the Carolinas, that sounds like great news, and it might be. But before you cancel your hurricane prep for the year, hold on, because the ocean doesn't shut down. It just moves the party somewhere else. While the Atlantic goes quiet, the Pacific is doing the exact opposite. Same El Niño, same physics, completely different outcome. Because warmer water off Mexico and Central America means less wind shear over there, and calmer conditions are like rocket fuel for storms. This week alone, the Pacific spun up two separate Category 5 storms, Hurricane Genevieve and Super Typhoon Dolphin. Two Cat 5s, same week, same ocean basin. That's the kind of activity meteorologists track using something called the ACE index, which measures not just how many storms form, but how strong and how long they last. Right now, that index shows the Pacific running way above its usual pace for this point in the season, while the Atlantic is sitting well below normal. It's a seesaw. One side goes down, the other side goes up. And which side you're on depends entirely on which coastline you call home. That's bad news specifically if you've got plans along Mexico's Pacific coast, Puerto Vallarta, Los Cabos, or if you've got a trip to Hawaii on the calendar. Warm water, calm air, and a very active storm track all lined up in the same place at the same time. Now here's where you'd expect me to tell you the Atlantic is completely safe. Scientists actually looked into that question directly, and the numbers back it up, to a point. A firm called Atmospheric G2 studied 7 previous El Niño hurricane seasons that looked a lot like this one. Not a single one of those 7 years saw more than one hurricane make U.S. landfall. And when researchers went back and specifically pulled up every Atlantic hurricane track during a confirmed Super El Niño, 1972, 1982, 1997, and 2015, the pattern held. Most of those storms curved out to sea and stayed there. So the history says, lower odds, calmer season, fewer direct hits. But lower odds isn't the same as no odds. And that's exactly where people get complacent. Because here's the thing nobody wants to hear. It only takes one storm to wreck your year. And that storm doesn't even need to be a hurricane. Back in June, a system called Tropical Storm Arthur rolled through, barely organized, nothing special on paper. That storm still dumped up to 29 inches of rain on parts of Louisiana. 29 inches. From a storm that wasn't even strong enough to be called a hurricane. That's the real lesson buried inside all this Super El Niño talk. The big picture, quieter Atlantic, more active Pacific, that's real, and it's backed by real data. But weather doesn't care about averages when it's sitting over your house. A quiet season on paper can still turn into the worst week of your life if the wrong storm parks itself over the wrong town. So if you're along the Gulf Coast or the Southeast this year, here's the honest read. Your odds just got better, genuinely better, according to 70+ years of data. But better odds is not permission to skip the flashlight batteries, the propane tank, and the plan with your family for where you'd go if things went sideways. Meanwhile, if your summer plans point toward the Pacific side, Mexico, Hawaii, this is the year to actually check the forecast before you book that fishing charter or that beachfront rental. That's the hurricane picture. But hurricanes are just one piece of what this Super El Niño is setting up. The same warm patch of ocean driving all of this is also locking in a pressure pattern across North America that's already showing up in forecast models for winter, and it's shaping up to be one of the strangest winters in decades for snow, cold, and storm tracks across the entire country. If this kind of breakdown is useful to you, subscribe so you don't miss the winter forecast video coming next. Drop a comment with where you live so we know what part of the country to dig into, and share this with someone who's got a beach trip or a hurricane plan riding on this season.